The following program is an MLWRadio.com production.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for another MLW conference call. And I have to say that we are blessed to have a great individual on the call with us today. Filthy Tom Lawlor, who is a legitimate multi-sport athlete. And since he debuted in MLW in 2017, he's been a top-ranked competitor in the league ever since. He's a former world heavyweight champion, and he'll be competing November 2nd at the Saturday Night SuperFight pay-per-view. And the first question that I have for you today, JG, a friend of MLW, asks, MLW's traveled all over the United States, including a collaborative event in Mexico with Crash. What's been your favorite venue or city to wrestle in so far?
Yeah, everywhere, virtually everywhere. I'm not going to actually say everywhere that MLW's been has been like an awesome experience as far as the venue goes, the fans. There have been a few places which, this isn't even a question. I'm going to say what my least favorite places were, and then I'll tell you what my favorite was. But there's been a few places, like I wasn't too thrilled with the way that the setup was in Miami. I think that, there's a fan base there that should have been at that show. And essentially I think that the venue itself was, kind of like the holdup. So I hope that we can get back to a place like Miami and a place like Florida and get to different venues, because I'm a big fan of going to Florida. That's MLW's not its home, but I guess it's spiritual home in a way. And being able to do shows in Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Miami was always awesome. The show in Fort Lauderdale, the War Games show a couple years back, was a great experience as well. But I always love going to Orlando. That's a place that I consider home. It was my home for like 10 years, and I'm pumped up to be going back there on November 9th for the Blood and Thunder show. So I guess that would be my answer. Orlando, even though we haven't been there in years.
Well, another question here from JG. On recent episodes of Fusion, you were called out by renowned grappler Timothy Thatcher and jiu-jitsu specialist Dominic Guarini. How does it feel to be one of the top talents in MLW where guys are aching to get in the ring with you?
Kind of a double-sided answer that I'm going to have. Being at the top of the card in MLW, it's great, but I'm at the top of the card. I'm not the champion, We saw what happened between myself and Fatu on multiple occasions. The first time, he was able to defeat me for the MLW title. The second time, I would have that title back if not for the interference of Joseph Samael. But it appears now that I've got people calling me out, and that's going to divert, my attention away from what I want. And that's the championship. When you're the champion, you have more opportunities. You have a better shot at making more money, getting into commercials, sponsorships. And now I've got guys like Timothy Thatcher, guys who are legitimate athletes in their own right, but for some reason are trying to use me and my past credentials to elevate themselves in MLW. And while I guess it's comforting to know that people want to make a name off of me in the league, it's also, detrimental to myself. Where's the benefit for me? I should rightfully be the champion right now. I got stabbed in the back of the head with a spike and then was moonsaulted onto. And now I'm going to have my attention diverted by Timothy Thatcher. Of course, great competitor, awesome wrestler. Under virtually any other circumstances, I would love to have him challenge me for a championship. But that's not what's happening here. He's calling me out, and he wants to, he wants to go to the next level. He wants to get that title shot, which is what I should be doing. So, like I said, it's comforting. It makes me feel good to know that the other competitors out there view me as that, they aspire to beat. But at the same time, I'm not here for them. I'm not here to let anybody else make a name off of me. I'm here to, elevate myself and really, to make sure that I'm the one at the top. There's only room for one person at the top of the game, and it's going to be me.
Well, that ties in with the question.
It's going to be me.
We'll clear the music publishing on that karaoke rendition. I appreciate that. But that question from Gary Cassidy of Sportskeeda and the Dropkicks Discussions podcast. Gary wants to know that you have defeated the likes of Jake Hager, Sami Callihan, and Strain Strickland in the past. Of course, you're a former MLW World Heavyweight Champion. But having been unsuccessful in your title rematch, you're now set to take on Davey Boy Smith Jr. at Blood and Thunder. What do you think a victory there would do in terms of your role of MLW's one of MLW's favorites, let's just say?
The match between myself and Davey Boy is one that MLW fans have been clamoring for a while. If you look at the polls that are put out on Twitter, it was constantly a match that was mentioned. Fans look forward to this fight. I believe the people in the back, the other competitors, this is a battle that they're looking forward to. And like I said earlier, Davey Boy's not cut from the same cloth so far as Tim Thatcher and Dominic Garrini. He hasn't called me out specifically by name. If he has, it's been, with respect. And yeah, I view him as a very respectful competitor. I respect Davey Boy as well. I respect what he's done in the past, what he's done in MLW, what he's doing currently. I'm sure he will continue to be a force to be reckoned with in the professional wrestling world for a long time to come. But on November 9th, I really don't care about any of that. I've been in there with guys who are bigger than him. I've fought in arenas all across the world and in front of people that I don't know. And now I'm going to be given an opportunity to showcase my skills, showcase my talents in wrestling against another very skilled competitor, somebody who can match me in a lot of the talents that I bring. Davey Boy can match me submission wise. He may not have the striking repertoire or the speed and quickness that I have with strikes, but he sure as hell can lay one in and knock anybody down. So I'm looking at this as like, he's somebody that can challenge me. He's somebody that can challenge me in the skills that I'm the best at. And what that does is it makes me better. It forges, like iron is forged under fire. And at Blood and Thunder, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a firefight. And I'm going to be in front of a crowd that I feel comfortable with. My friends will be there. People I've competed with, people I've competed against. I'll have coaches that have been with me throughout, the past 20 years of my life will be in attendance there. So you're going to see the best Tom Lawlor that you can. And, it's cool that Davey Boy's the one across from me there, but no matter who it is, there's got to be blood and thunder left in that ring.
And a follow-up from Gary Cassidy is that with the likes of Cain Velasquez, Matt Riddle, Ronda Rousey, other people transitioning from the octagon to the squared circle, much like yourself, if you could bring anyone from UFC to MLW, who would you choose?
If we're talking right now, who would I choose in the UFC? It's a good question. Not one I had given much consideration to, actually. I think you've got to take Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight champion. Why not? The biggest, baddest man on the planet. Defeated arguably the number one pound for pound fighter in the world, Daniel Cormier, a two division champion. So let's take him. Let's take the baddest man out there. You get, Cain Velasquez just showed up on SmackDown, and if we put all these guys back into the octagon today, Cain may have beaten Brock 10 years ago, but I'm not sure that the 2019 Cain Velasquez beats 2019 Brock Lesnar in the octagon. And I don't think either of them would be able to hold a candle to Stipe. So,
cool.
Final answer.
And a similar question from Pedro Peralta of Record. And Pedro wants to know that with the influx of shooters and wrestlers and people of similar MMA backgrounds coming into MLW and wrestling in general, do you welcome that, or do you see that as a challenge, or both?
Pedro. Let's give Pedro a vote there, because he answered his own question. It's both, of course. It's a challenge, and it's something that I view as, very welcome. I love to be able to get in there and wrestle with people who have a legitimate shoot background, whether it be from amateur wrestling, catch wrestling like Tim Thatcher, Brazilian jiu-jitsu like Dom Guarini. You mentioned other guys you mentioned Matt Riddle before. I've wrestled Matt Riddle because obviously an MMA background and an amateur wrestling background. Wrestled him in MLW. Jack Swagger, Jeff Cobb. We've had a number of different fighters from different martial arts make their way into and through MLW, and it's always been something that I think is great. I'm not much of a high flyer per se. If you watch me in the ring, and like being able to do mat wrestling, being able to do submissions, being able to lay in hard strikes with other guys that present a realistic fight style of wrestling is really the thing that really appeals to me at my heart the most. So whenever I get a chance to fight a guy like Loki, who obviously knows his martial arts, whenever I get a chance to fight a guy like you mentioned, Jack Swagger, Matt Riddle, those guys before, it was always great. Now we have Tim Thatcher, Dominic Guarini, Douglas James is another great competitor from the jiu-jitsu world who recently made his way to MLW. We have these new influx of styles and competitors, and I'm excited. I'm really pumped up to be able to get to fight these guys. And it looks like, maybe that'll be my future for a little bit. I've got Tim Thatcher lined up. Obviously, he's legitimate. Davey Boy Smith, another guy with very legitimate credentials, if you look at his past. And then we've got Dom Guarini, Douglas James, a lot of the luchadors that come up, and people, don't really realize this unless they pay very close attention, but they have great submission skills, and that's something that's not often thought of. So, it's always a challenge, but without that challenge, I'm not going to get any better. So I welcome it.
I think that Pedro's redeemed himself with this next question, and that's MLW seems to be a good pairing for you. Why is that, in your opinion?
I think it's essentially what I just mentioned, or, piggybacking what I was just talking about. It's a mix of different styles, and, my wrestling style may not be a, traditional wrestling style to a lot of people. Not a lot of running the ropes, and that sort of thing that people are, used to with now this traditional style of American wrestling. It's more of a mat-based, submission-based, striking-based style that I have. But, that's not the only thing you get on the card. You get a little bit of that. You get a little bit of, lucha libre. You get some hardcore action. So I think that, being able to kind of dip my feet into all these different things while also trying to, stay true to myself and the way that I fight really has been a huge benefit. Timing is everything. MLW started up right as I was, making my way back into professional wrestling, and, what a better chance to, jump on board something that's growing along with you. What better timing than that? So it just seems like it worked out.
Well, another complimentary question here, courtesy of Jesus Perez, and he says, as a former professional MMA fighter who has fought on pay-per-view, do you see yourself as a locker room leader to motivate the roster as they are about to perform on one of the biggest platforms ever?
No. I'm not sitting back in the locker room there to motivate other people. I'm there to motivate myself. I'm there to do a job. If other people can't find their own intrinsic motivation to go out in the ring and do their best, that's on them. I don't have time for that shit. I bust my ass, and I've done it too hard for 20 plus years. And I've watched countless fighters in the past just blow opportunities left and right, not listening to people. And it's not my place to do that. Everybody back there is over 18, I think. Everybody's, an adult, and they should be able to police themselves. If they want to go out there and put in a half-ass effort for one reason or another, then it's going to show and it's going to reflect on them. And I mean, everybody's going to see it. I don't need to sit back there and fire up the troops. I'm going to fire myself up. I'll lead by example, not, getting in people's faces and trying to make a scene out of things. 36 years old, damn it.
Fair enough.
I'm a grown man. Take care of yourself.
So going back, Stevie from Angry Marks wanted to know whether you'll ever be considering a return to MMA or if you're with Pro Wrestling for Life, really.
I would, I would consider going back to MMA. But one thing really irked me back when I was with the UFC, and that was I was ranked in the top 15 for the UFC, and there was one person on the panel, I think, that didn't vote me in. And guess who it was? Stevie from Angry Marks.
Is that true now? Is this the gospel here? Because his follow-up question is not going to be too likable for you.
Oh, 100% that's true. So, yeah, here's the thing: is I get offers to fight intermittently. I get contacted by companies, and I go back and forth on what the answer should be. I'm at a point in my life where it's like I shouldn't be forced into a fight, and I'm not going to be forced into a fight for monetary reasons. So I've been offered some things, but the timing just hasn't worked out. Ask me tomorrow, my answer may be different. I may say I'll never fight again. I'm only going to wrestle. You ask me the next day, I may tell you the exact opposite. But right now, there's nothing on the table, so I can't go hey, I'm retired, because I'm not sure if I'll fight again, but I may.
Well, the second question from Stevie is, when is Tom finally going to be on my show?
If he casts a vote for me, top 50 in the UFC right now, I'll go on his show.
Well, RJ Kruzinski of Ringside Rant wanted to know, in your opinion, is starting in sports like MMA and then coming to wrestling the way to go?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't necessarily start in MMA or wrestling. I had kind of just done both of them together at the same time. As far as the strategy of wrestling or going into a different combat sport and then coming into wrestling goes, like I said, I was kind of doing both of them at the same time. My first MMA fight was in 2003. And then my first professional wrestling match was 2006. Maybe it was 2005. I don't remember. But I was doing both of them kind of concurrently. So I always viewed them as the same thing, essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to sell a fight. You're trying to sell some sort of conflict. You're trying to get viewers to watch two people engage in battle. So I never viewed them differently, but, to the American public, they are viewed quite differently if you're not, really hardcore into both scenes. So it's one of the best things I ever did actually for my wrestling career was stop wrestling, obviously. And not everybody is going to make it to the UFC. Not everybody's going to be at a high level in MMA. There's plenty of people who fail along the way. And luckily for myself, I was able to make a little bit of a name based on my fighting skills and personality to, allow me to get some opportunities that maybe other people wouldn't have, outside of the cage. So it's all going to be based on the individual. I'm lucky to have, whether it's good or bad, some type of personality. A lot of fighters are introverted, but I've been able to carve out a niche or a character for myself in MMA kind of first, and then bring that over to pro wrestling. But like I said, not everybody's going to have that chance. Not everybody's going to have that opportunity. Not everybody is quite frankly going to be one of the toughest guys on planet Earth like I am. So basically you have to do what you love. You have to do what your best opportunity for success is going to be. And I don't know what that is. If you're a phenomenal guy with a suit background, then I would suggest going into MMA. If you're a gymnast or maybe a football player with great athletic genes, but doesn't have that shoot background, maybe you'd be better off wrestling and kind of learning the techniques, but not employing them in like a 100% fashion. So, I mean, it's all individual. And like I said earlier, timing's everything too. If I was born 5 years later, maybe I wouldn't be doing MMA. Maybe I would only be wrestling. Maybe I'd only be doing MMA. We have no idea.
Fair enough. And a follow-up from RJ is, are you looking to do overseas touring? Are there any places that you're hoping to get to or excited about going to?
Yeah, I'd love to go anywhere. I've been all across the world. The only continent I have not stepped foot on is Antarctica. Well, actually, I hate to say this. Sorry, South America and Antarctica, which I could do in one shot. But I've been, virtually everywhere else in the world. And I'd love to go back almost everywhere that I've been. Perhaps not Djibouti, Africa, or Turkey, down on the Syrian border. Those are kind of not my favorite places that I visited, but everywhere else is fair game. I would love, obviously, to wrestle in Japan. I was a huge fan of Japanese, and still am, wrestling and mixed martial arts. So, I mean, that's on the bucket list for sure.
Way aside from all that, Carlos from Indie Pro Wrestling wanted to know, what made you choose MLW over other promotions?
I kind of talked about that earlier with a question when I said that timing, was everything. Like I said, MLW, when I kind of got back into the pro wrestling world, or was in my infancy upon my return, MLW was restarting up. It was getting, foothold with fans, like as far as internet presence goes. And then the deal with beIN Sports came around at, a time when, I was looking for options out there as far as what I was going to do with my wrestling career. And it seemed like a great chance. I had the opportunity to, go to beIN Sports stations and their studios and talk with producers and the people that work there. And it was an awesome time. And, just seeing like the support that Court and the other people backstage had from the station and, from other people who were there at the event, investors and that sort of thing, played a big deal.
Well, a couple questions from me, if you don't mind, and then you can be a free man. How's that sound?
I'm never a free man.
Right on. So first off, how have you enjoyed teaming with the Von Erichs?
Love it. I absolutely love the Von Erichs. They are probably the people I get asked the most about by other wrestlers, other fans. What's it like teaming with them? What's it like talking to them? What's it like hanging out with them? What are they like? And they're a blast, They like to get in there and scrap. They're simple, but they're wild as well. They're kind of like, I hate to use this term because MJF uses it, but they're really like salt of the earth people. They're really good people. A little naive sometimes, maybe they don't see, everything for what it is, but yeah, they're good guys for the most part.
Then another thing that the internet is buzzing about, or at least asking about, is there a potential Lawlor Loki rematch on the horizon? Anything to that effect?
As of right now, I've got zero issues with Loki. I've mentioned this in the past, but being in the ring with Loki in a competitive environment really forces you to raise your game. And I think being in there under any environment with Loki around kind of brings out a different animal. It brings out a different level of intensity. And, whether I fight Loki again or whether I get the chance to maybe even team with him again, I would welcome that.
And looking ahead to SuperFight, your match with Timothy Thatcher, what should we expect to be seeing from that?
Well, what you can expect to see more of is something that you already don't see. What I mean by that is, if you take a look at Timothy Thatcher, take a look at Timothy Thatcher's face, his mouth, what you won't see is one very prominent tooth in the front. And on November 2nd, you're going to continue to see more of that. You're going to see me knock Tim's teeth down his throat. A bigger fish to fry, in a way. I didn't call Timothy Thatcher out. I didn't mention his name. I wasn't looking to test myself against him. He's the one that talked about me. He's the one that said, "Oh, Timothy Thatcher against Tom Lawlor. That sounds like a super fight." Well, Tim, last time I checked, you brandished yourself a catch wrestler, okay? You are going to step in there with a fighter, a professional MMA fighter, one of the toughest guys on the planet for the past, 12 years, 11 years, okay? You're stepping into my game. You challenge me to super fight, a super fight.
I can see how that'll get anyone worked up. So, Tom, finally, any last words for the kids?
That's who I do it for, I learned that from my boy Trick Daddy back in the day. To do it for the kids. Work your hardest. Good things sometimes happen. Most of the times they don't. But you got to keep plugging.
The world of MLW Radio never stops.